Welcome back everybody. Today we've got this beautiful SL7 tarmac in, full Dura-Ace Di2, top of the range. This is as good as it gets pretty much. In for a service. So the brakes basically, as you can see, they're pretty much back to the bar. I have measured the discs, they're pretty much at the limit, so we'll be putting new discs, new pads on there, bedding them in on the sinter brake bedding in machine. I only want this fork chopping down so we can get rid of this little bit here. Relatively straightforward on most bikes, not quite so on this bike. We'll get to that one. Going to do a Di2 firmware update on it, and there's a couple of little plastic covers we're looking at. These things here are loose, and the cover fell off the rear derailleur, and see what else it needs. So let's crack on with this beauty. So the bike is looked after extremely well. It's just oil. It's well lubricated, potentially slightly over lubricated, but we are putting a new chain on this as well. So chain wear, we are at 0.75 on this one, so this is the right time to change this. Potentially catch it slightly earlier, but we'll be fine at 0.75. So we're putting a new chain on here as well, leaving the cassette as is. So the charging port covers fell off. I'm going to try and clip that back in if possible. It says there's only one of these power meters working intermittently. I don't think there's anything we're going to be able to do with that. I think there's a screw missing there actually for a start. So, but other than that, I think that's going to have to go back to manufacturers. I'm not going to start taking £800 power meters apart. These little plastic covers that cover the brake hoses, they are loose, but I think they've got a bit of a reputation of being loose. They're not the best. We'll see what we can do with that. Okay, the main challenge on this is going to be to remove this. So there's two different caps on here. Basically, if you've got an extended steerer like this, it has a hole in it, like this one. And then when you cut this off and set it flush, there's another cover. It doesn't have a hole in it. Unfortunately, the customer supplied me the wrong one, so he's sent me the two of the open ones. So I'm just waiting for a response to see if he's got the correct covered one there. If we do, what we need to do then is basically drop the fork through. The front brake hose will be an issue because that's going through the fork, which we need to remove to be able to trim it. And obviously that hose goes all the way through to the brake lever, which we would need to get access to. The challenge is we can't really just undo the caliper end and pull the hose through and re-terminate there, because the hose is going through there, through the fork, and there's a piece of tape inside here that tapes the hose to the fork, which we would need access to. So what we would need to undo is the brake lever end and pull the hose through that way, pull the fork out, put the fork back in with tape, and then re-terminate back at the brake levers. So it's going to be a bit of a pain just for the sake of losing 5mm here, but I can see why he wants to do it because it does look a bit not great. And obviously if we do that, we're going to have to replace this bar tape, but there is some wear on here anyway. So just measuring up these rotors, 1.5 is your minimum limit on a Shimano. I think because of the length of the lever and the pads are low, we'll just measure this. That's coming up at 1.6-ish. Just measure it across a few points. Again, 1.63. So we're getting very close to the 1.5. So there's no point sending this out for another year with 0.1mm left on the rotors. There's a normal vernier caliper with some part tool attachments. These little points here basically grab the rotor in the middle of the rotor rather than trying to measure with a normal one where potentially you've got a lip and you're getting an incorrect reading. So these dots basically go onto the rotor itself halfway down, and then you get a truer reading. So we're about 1.6 on there. I have measured the front, it's pretty similar, so we are changing both rotors, both pads. These are titanium pads on these, so very nice. Tyre wise, we're looking good on these. These are 25 on a nice wide rim. There's no issues with the tyres. We're not on tubeless, we have inner tubes. See the profile here, you can actually see the rim, both sides of this tyre. So potentially you might want to put a 28 on there. But it looks okay as it is. Looks nice for the amber wheels anyway. Bearing wise, there's no issues at all. Bottom bracket is great. Both wheels are fantastic. Headset feels good, and potentially will be in the headset anyway, so we can just inspect the bearings. So let's crack on with this, get the wheels out, get these rotors changed over, and yeah, we'll carry on. I'll just show you Dura-Ace Di2 gears, fantastic. Up to your ring there. There we go. Quite loud. So yeah, gears working absolutely flawlessly. So the only thing we're doing on this is changing the chain and hopefully refitting this cover on the derailleur. So let's go. Just whip this wheel out. Just a 6mm through axle. Beautiful bike this. I've had a couple of these SL7 tarmacs in, but the other one was on SRAM system, which again worked fantastically. Here we go. One wheel out. These pads are toast. Let's just get this chain off while we're here. There's a 9100 chain. Keep that to measure. We've already checked the length of the chain on big, so we're fine. Small. I think first job is we're going to try and get this cover back in here. Yes, this cover basically, it's just a dust cover for the charging port on the Di2, but it just fell out of its slot here. It doesn't appear to be broken, but I'm not sure how well we're going to get on. We're getting this back in. I've read about a few people having the same issue, so we're basically all we can do really is try and push it back in. I'm not going to start taking covers off the derailleur. They're very flexible. That's the problem. You're trying to push it, and all it's doing is bending this cover here. So some very small pliers I bought. These are jeweler's pliers, basically, but they're good for things like this, little tiny things. So we're just going to grab that there, and hopefully being able to manipulate that into there without breaking something. I say it is only a dust cover. It's not the end of the world, but it'd be nice to get it in. I'm sort of started. We can get it in a bit further. Right. Okay, that's in where it should be now. Not too bad. So there you go. Not sure how long it's going to stay in there, but it's in now. Cool. So you can see these pads are very low, so I'm just going to take these out while we're in the area. So just pull this clip off like that. So these Dura-Ace calipers have a slotted screw, the same as Ultegra, but these are anodized, so they don't tend to seize up like Ultegra do. Let's come out nicely. No problem. And we just pull them out. Okay. Exactly the same on front as well. We're just going to take these out, pull the clip off. Make sure you get the right size screwdriver for these. I bought this one specifically for this job again. It's another wearer. I used to can't possibly read what it was. I think it needs washing. Just push those through again. It's not quite as bad as they look, but we'll put new rotors on, we'll change the pads as well. So what we need to do now is push these pistons back in. So what we need to be very careful of, I've not seen this bike before, so I don't know who serviced it before. So potentially the system could be overfilled. So what you don't want to do is just push these pistons all the way back without leaving somewhere for any fluid to go. So I'm going to open up the lever, put a bleed pot on there first, and then we'll push these back in. Potentially this is all coming off to do this handlebar stem anyway, but I'm just waiting for confirmation. This is the lever for the back, which we're going to do first. Pull the hood back, and there's the bleed port there. Puts a lot of pressure on this when you put your cup in, so you got to be careful. Basically, you don't want to end up stripping this or breaking off a bleed cup within there, because it puts a lot of pressure on that rubber when you're trying to get this out. It's not good. So we just whip this out now anyway. It's 2.5mm. It's a really stupid place to put this. They seem to change it on every lever they do, but this is not great. Take that out, make sure your O-ring comes with it, and screw it in. This is a Shimano bleed cup. Plastic one. I like to use plastic, because rather than damaging the lever, all you're going to do is damage the cup. These fancy metal ones, if you break the thread in there, that's a £300 lever. Just going to put a tiny drop of fluid in here just to cover the hole basically. That's it. So we're just going to clean these pistons before we push them back in. Just brake fluid cleaner there basically. Otherwise if you press them back in now, you're just getting dirt inside around the seals, which is not ideal. That one's going back in itself. Yeah. Make sure they go in straight, whatever you do. So both of those in, and the lever was open, so we know we're not going to blow the bladder, which can potentially happen. Put the bleed block in here while we're just trying to burp this lever a little bit. And we're just pressing the lever, make sure there's no air in there, nothing at all in there. Absolutely rock solid. So we're not bleeding the system, so we might end up bleeding the front one if we've got to take this hose off, which I think we are. The back one's done, so now we can put this plug back in and put some pads in. Take that in there. Get a cloth ready, because you're going to spill a drop. Get your plug ready. And just refit that. Be very careful with this. Sometimes the angle can look a bit funny and you get it cross-threaded. Like that's tight enough, yeah? Literally just nip it up. Any excess, just wipe that off. Any excess fluid gets under here, it can cause issues with the hood slipping potentially, but right, that's good. Pull this hood back now. We're done in there. These Shimano pads are titanium backing plate. They're extremely lightweight. Dura-Ace, let's go. There's the old and new, so there's quite a bit more material on the new one. So it's very low lever, so it's well juicing pads and discs. They're crazy light. I've seen some channels recommending you put copper grease on the back of these, which to me is just a terrible idea. The last thing you want is grease in the area of these brakes. If it sort of melts, drips, transfers whatever it gets on the rotor. Oh my god. On a car, maybe. On a bike, absolutely not. Drop an Allen key through there, make sure you line everything up like that. Don't go tight, it's literally just a retaining pin. We're not holding the bike together with this. That's enough there. There's a port missing here. Put your safety retaining pin on the back. Cool. Alright, let's change this rotor. So 140 on the back and 160 on the front. It's tight. 40 Newton meters, that definitely was 40 Newton meters. Done. You've done your job well. There's a little bit of grease on these splines, which is fine. As long as it's nowhere near the rotors, we're all good. This bike is spotless. Don't even need to clean the inside of the hub. He's looked after this so well. Just a tiny bit down here, we can give it a bit of a wipe. Customer's got some very nice bikes. Keeps me busy. Dura-Ace disc as well. I'm not skimping on this one. Everything the same, is whatever came off is going back on. Your rotor on there, beautiful. Should get a new lock ring in here as well. I don't know why Shimano insists on putting these in little paper bags, they always do. One way to know it's genuine, I guess. Turns up in a little plastic bag, it's probably not genuine. I hate these stickers. You see these are like 10 years old, they're still on there, just look ridiculous. Take them off. 40 Newton meters on the weir up. When you're talking, make sure you always hold the handle. Don't do it like this. It's just totally wrong. It's not how it works. So hold the handle, and once it clicks, just stop. Like that. Don't keep going click, 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 click. That's done. Okay, this can go back onto the bike. I just noticed behind the bottom bracket there's a bit of sticky tape here covering over the old unused derailleur port. I think we can do a bit better than that. Let's get this off while it's here. Bit of gaffer tape. So there's a big hole there. So basically that's if you're using a cable derailleur. There should be a bung in there, it's probably fell out. Just going to get the remains of that residue off there. Just goo gone. See what we've got to fill that with. Nice little rubber bung is going to fill that hole up. Perfect. That's done. A little bit lacking in grease on this, so let's get some grease on the through axle. Anyway, the bulgy bits where it's sitting against things is where you need it. The bit in the middle, not so critical. Just a light coating, you don't want these seizing up. And a bit on the thread as well. Alright, this can go in there. It's easy without a chain, you can just swing it straight back in there. Perfect. And just drop your axle through. I'm just going to squeeze the lever to get these pads bedded in. Well, not bedded in, but hitting the disc. Beautiful. Right. The lever throw is pretty much a third of what it was before. That's okay, good. Grease on my wheel. So next I'm going to put the chain on, because I want to try and finish with the back end of the bike. So we've done this, we've done the brakes, get the chain on, we don't need to worry about the gears, we know they're absolutely perfect. And then we can move to the front end of the bike where most of the work's going to be. On Shimano chains, I think 10, 11, 12 speed, you'll see writing just on one side, same as this. Go to the other side, there's no writing. So the writing faces you, faces your drive side. How much difference it makes? Probably not a great deal, but it's there to be done, so let's get it on. So I'm not going to lubricate this chain. Customer's obviously got his preferred lubrication. I'll let him do that rather than sort of mixing and matching. Beautiful derailleur. This is carbon fibre cages, everything. So you get what you pay for on Dura-Ace. Don't see very much of it, but it's always a pleasure. That's through there. New quick link. Again, these are directional. Hook them together gently and then get your tool. I don't care how many people tell me you can put it, whack the pedal to do this up. You have no idea how tight a genuine Shimano link is. You're not doing that without hurting your hand, and especially if you're doing this day in, day out. That's what tools are made for. See how tight this is. Extremely tight. I'm not into beating customers' bikes up. I'm going to run through these gears, although they will be absolutely perfect. Unsurprisingly, perfect. So next we're going to look at these little plastic bits on the bottom of the handlebar. I've got the bike pretty much upside down at the moment on the stand. So there's two little tiny bolts in here. This is coming out as well because we are going to take this fork out in a minute. So we'll take this out first. I know the customers had this out previously, so shouldn't be too bad. 3mm out. There's two little screws down here. Oh my god, they're so small, it's ridiculous. It says 2.5mm on Specialized website, but these are 2mm. Gotta get them back in, that's gonna be the hard bit. Right, there's one. Tiny little thing. Got Loctite on it, but it's not been doing much. So in here, there's a little metal washer, so potentially what we can do is use some tiny spring washers that will go against that and the plastic cover. That should help it not rattle loose anymore. Take this one out. I think I'd prefer a fully integrated stem rather than these stupid bits. Oh, that's the other one off. So, to trim this is going to be a proper pain in the arse. If you're building up a brand new bike and you've not put all these cozies connected, not too bad, but when it's all connected, well, there's a lot of work for chopping off 3mm of carbon fibre. Take them off. Literally, we've got to get this below here. Take the cover off. So what we're going to do basically, we're going to mark down the bottom of here, get the fork out of the bike, which is easier said than done. Cut off probably 5 or 6mm, refit the fork, refit the stem, and then put the flush cover on it. So the SL7s were subject to a recall. If you've got a black one of these, you're probably due a recall. If you've got the red one, this is the updated version. It's basically the expander that goes in there. So they've reinforced it all the way down to the steerer, because I think one of these snapped off once, which is not ideal. So what we're going to have to do is disconnect this brake hose from the back of this lever, pull the hose out from the bar, and then we can drop the fork out with the hose still through there, trim the fork, refit, but obviously we've got to take this bar tape off to be able to do that, so let's do that first. So the nut is here, so you can't get to this nut without taking the bar tape off. To be fair, it's got some wear on it anyway, so we'll take this off. I think this is the original bar tape, so it's probably due a change. Push that in, and then you should be able to get this out. So this bar's wrapped from top to bottom, so there's no tape up here. We're going in from the bottom there. Right. We have access to the nut. Just keep going there. I think this hose is going to be too short as well, so potentially we're going to have to run a new hose as well. Terminate it at both ends and obviously bleed the system through. So there's the nut that we're trying to get to. So when we undo this, we'll be able to get this hose through the bar, and then we can pull the fork. Luckily the back one doesn't need to come out. I think that's going down the front of the fork. So it's just this, obviously the front brake that's going through the fork itself, so we need to disconnect this. So ideally I wanted to disconnect this from the caliper itself and pull it through the fork. So it'd be a lot easier. You wouldn't have to do the bars, but you'll see why when I get it out, because there's a bit of tape they used. These wireless Di2 shifters. I think they've finally gone full wireless now on some of their kit. XTR for sure. I think GRX has just been announced. I'm sure Dura-Ace will be next if it's not already out. Alright, that's out there. I'm going to swing this lever around because it's going to be tight. I'm just going to mark the lever up where it needs to go back onto the bar and just loosen that off there, because this is coming out at an angle now, so we don't want to risk cross-threading anything. Alright, so that's out now, so we need this nut. Pull this through there. There we go. So that can just stay there as it is. So there's not going to be any slack in this hose to pull through, because we've got to cut this olive off to get it through the bar. Well, I say you've got to get the nut off. Obviously you can't get the nut off without cutting the olive off. So by the time you cut that off, you've lost sort of 10mm of hose, and there's no slack in this hose from here to the caliper to gain that 10mm back. So I think we're going to end up running a new piece of BH90 hose, which is not the end of the world, but we're committed now. That's off. I'll take the nut off, that's the important bit. Just going to thread this cable tool into here so we can pull a new one through a bit easier. Yeah, so if you're trimming this fork before connecting all this up, you just sort of a new build out of the box, then yeah, it's a piece of cake. But once it's all been set up like this and the hoses are cut to length, it's just not a piece of cake. Is that even going to go past there? Yes. Right, so that is through there. Now we'll leave this green piece in here, obviously. Now we should be able to get the fork out relatively straightforward, hopefully. Alright, don't lose that. I'm going to tighten a very loose knot because I really don't want that coming out. There you go. Some cheap AliExpress thing, and it's not very expensive. Right, now we need to take the fork out. So before you take all that out, obviously make sure you put a mark on the stem here first. And then we're going to cut below that. Not particularly visible, so I'm going to measure it as well. So we're losing 4mm minus 2 or 3. Disconnect these two side bolts, obviously. Take the stem off. Don't twist the stem because Specialized shout at you then. The fork should come out now with this hose attached to it. You can clip these out to make it a bit easier, but not the top one or the bottom one, unfortunately, so that doesn't really help you a great deal. So anyway, we're out now. So I'm going to put this fork normally goes through the bottom, but I don't really see any harm in putting it through the top for this instance. Say fork is just a bit of metal, really. This dummy fork, yeah, you can put it in upside down if you want, but all I'm trying to do is just support these bars temporarily while we get this fork done. Okay, so this piece of tape here is why we've took this fork out, because if you sort of pull it through the other way and you're pushing it back down there, this hose is basically not going to be taped down anymore and potentially could rub against the front of the bike. So it's got a little bit of sellotape there, so all that extra work just to put a bit of sellotape on. This lower bearing that takes all the abuse, all the grit gets flicked up in there. This feels pretty rubbish, to be fair, so I'm going to change that. I'm not going to do the back, it feels good. Plus the fact we then have to disconnect the rear brake hose, etc., and do the same job twice and charge the customer twice as much. Nothing wrong with that bearing. This one is absolutely knackered. Let's see if I've got a new one. Typically, I don't have a bearing in stock. I carry about 20-30 different sizes of headset bearings in stock, and pretty much every single time it's everything apart from the one I need. So I've got these on order for tomorrow, next day delivery. There's a few other bits we can carry on with, obviously cutting the fork down, thread a new hose back through there, and then wait for the bearing tomorrow. The lower bearing always takes a much harder life than the upper one. You can see all this grit that works its way in, just gets flicked up by a tyre. So the upper one tends to last significantly longer. I'll say we could change the other one while we're in here, but it means disconnecting the rear brake, making another hose, putting it all through the frame, and it's just not required. So there's no point charging the customer for work that's not actually required. Make sure we inspect this, any wear marks or anything obscure. This all looks perfectly good to me. What we need to do is get this expander out now. So there's a 6mm here, and there's a black sort of tapered piece in here that holds it in place. It holds this red bit in place, so we need to get that out. Let's get this bolt all the way out, I think. The easiest, got to come out anyway. I'm guessing that's titanium. It's nothing. This black piece in here can be a bit tricky. Normally you can get the Allen key in here and wiggle it side to side. Because it's on a taper basically, it's locking itself into the fork. Right, so it's a good fit, so I'm just going to try and get this slide hammer into here. And we should just be able to pull it straight out. There we go. Not particularly tight, it's just the way it's wedged in, it makes it a bit awkward otherwise. That comes out now. So once that's out, you should be able to pull this out. If not, then basically put the bolt back in there, give it a little tap just to break the wedge off there. And that should come out, and then the other piece should just come out with it, like that. How this works is really it's just a wedge in there, so the more they tighten the bolt, it wedges it like that inside this red piece here. Just down like that, and that basically expands this red piece into the fork. So this is the updated version, so they basically made this longer to give more internal support to the fork after their recall. So that's the newer version. If you don't have the red one fitted to yours, then check Specialized website to see if your bike is part of the recall and get it done. So now we need to cut the fork. There is a mark somewhere I'll put on there, but I'm going to measure it again. So I measured 4mm, and then we've got to go 3mm below the stem when we cut it. So we need a total cut of 7mm. And this is definitely a case of measuring 10 times, cut once. Otherwise, you're either taking a spacer out the stem or you're putting a new fork in. So let's get this right. Set these to around about 7mm, and then we're going to score the fork with that. Just scoring this all the way around. And that's 7mm there, so we need to cut that off. Carbon fork, you need to change to a carbon blade. You probably can do it with a normal one, to be fair, but if you've got the carbon blade, then use that. Always wear a face mask if you're cutting carbon. And then when you are cutting it, be very careful where you line it up. Don't cut through the middle of the line, because then you'd be cutting the width of the blade, so you'd end up with sort of a 8mm cut. So top of the line, and then just cut it through. It cuts very easily on carbon. Okay, so it's the next day now. My microphone's run out of battery yesterday, so I called it a day. Let's carry on. So just disconnected this hose from here. We're going to pull this hose through the fork. We've attached the puller there, so we just thread this through the fork now. So you probably don't need this. You can probably put it through without, but be on the safe side. We are replacing this hose, so normally not too bad. There you go. Obviously leave the puller in the fork. Right, there's the old hose. Full of fluid, so be careful with it. And don't lose the nut, we need that. So the new headset bearing just came in. Kinetic Bearings UK, fantastic guys, big shout out to them. Always super fast delivering, perfect. So I've got a new piece of hose here. It's exactly the same length. I've added sort of 3 or 4mm just to be on the safe side. You've got to be super critical with this, what length you're doing. And we're going to pull this through the fork now, just the same as removal. It'll push all the way through to this last little bit here. Then it's just a case of a bit of a pull on the last little bit. There you go, so that's that through. We need to terminate this end to the caliper now. And remember to fit this piece as well that goes into the fork. It just sits in there. Put your nut on, and we're going to put a new barb and olive on here. So BH90 barb and olive. Well, just get it started, and then just get yourself a little tool like this. Line the pin up in there, clamp your hose, That's it, just stop when it's flush at the end. Then this needs to go obviously back into the caliper, which could be slightly challenging. It's quite a short angle to get this hose into. It's going to pull a bit more hose through first. So push the hose in, bottom it out. You need to put a little bit of grease on these as well. Shimano ask for premium grease, that's what they get. Just a drop, just helps locate the hose in properly. Get this thread started straight. The tricky bit, that's going to go in at an angle now, so we need to make sure that's starting straight. So like I say, it's probably almost certainly easier just to disconnect this caliper off the fork. The only issue with doing that is then you've got to recenter your brakes. Try it first, see if it'll start. It's not going to start, I'm just going to take that off. All this means is you've got to recenter your brakes when you put the caliper back on, but it's no big deal. Well, it can be a big deal. Surprised they're not titanium. Guess you could always upgrade and save a gram. That's what it's all about, isn't it? To be fair, I used to be just as bad back in the day when I built mountain bikes. Spent far too much money on things to save a gram or two here and there. I'd rather have reliability and stuff that's not going to snap in half than saving every gram possible. That's more important. Now we can easily get this thread started in here now. Don't forget, all this work still is because we wanted to trim 7mm off the steerer tube. To be fair, that headset bearing was toast as well, so it was worth doing. Right, we'll tighten that back up when it's attached to the fork properly. I think there's something wrong with this Loctite, it's gone very thick. I think I'm going to change to the purple one rather than the blue one. And do need to get a bleed block in here, push these pistons back, just the same as we did on the rear brake. Alright, just bolt that on loosely for now. We're going to need to centralise that on the disc. Alright, I'll tighten this back up when it's on the bike, I've got a bit more access to it. So that can go back in now, we put this plug back in here. Calipers on, new barb and olive there, new hose going to go through here. And now we need to put the important piece of tape on here. Again, this is the only reason I've done it this way, is so we can re-tape this to the steerer, otherwise they're flapping around here and potentially this hose is going to rub against the head tube, so that's the only reason they've done it. Don't normally see this. Looks like they've only used just a bit of sellotape, doesn't look anything special, so we're going to go with insulating tape on this one. Good enough for handlebars in all weather. I think it's good enough for here. Well, it's never going to move. Should never see weather either. So now the fork can go back in the bike, so that's that there. Like I said, the only reason we've done that is so this sits flush to the fork, and there's a little spacer it's got to go through on the fork. That will help get through there as well. So now we can put a bearing on. Shiny new bearing. These are the dark oxide ones. I think these give a better corrosion resistance. Yeah, Kinetic, awesome guys. If you're in the UK and you need bearings for bikes, Kinetic bearings, go-to people. Not sponsored yet. I'm going to be looking for a couple of sponsors soon, so maybe they'll be one of the first. Maybe the BSC guys as well. I'm always shouting their stuff out, so we'll see where it goes. We'll get some more grease in the bearing cup as well. Make sure you get some down here, but not too much because it can attract a lot of grit. Obviously, it's flicked up here. You just end up with a grinding paste, but a little bit down there. It's more important in the frame because you can always get this off the fork pretty easily, but you can never get this out of the frame without extreme difficulty. I'm just cleaning up this top headset cup just before we put it back in. I've took those spaces, the spaces that clip off I've took out just to give me a bit more room to work with. I wonder if the industry's ever going to stop doing this. I don't think they will. Some of them are better than others, but I mean, it's not the end of the world. It comes with the territory, I guess, but it doesn't bother me. But it can be a major hassle and expense for you guys. Right, a bit more grease in there. Grease in this cup. Like I say, this is the worst thing you want in the world. You want to get seized is a bearing into your carbon frame. Guess you can use anti-seize grease. Anything's better than nothing, that's for sure. Right, that's sitting in there. That bearing's beautiful. On this one here, there are very, very specific instructions as to how to fit this. Not difficult. So this hole here is for the front brake. This hole here is for the rear brake, depending on what side of the bike your lever is on. So in the UK, the rear brake is on this side of the bike, hence it's in there. And for gear cables, there's also instructions where they need to go as well. No gear cables on this bike, obviously with wireless Di2, so it's not quite so bad. Alright, so the fork can go in here now, and the front brake hose needs to go through this slot here. No hands, use your mouth. Right, a moment of truth. Do I owe the customer a new fork? I hope not, because this is not going to be cheap. Look how many hands you need to do this. Right, so that's started on there. Front brake hose in there. Push this in. That's just the expander, that's fine. Okay, there's one in. Brake hose needs to go through here now. Right, so that's in. First one can go on now. I'm getting somewhere now, hopefully. Beautiful. Right, so this top one can now go in. Hose through there as well. We've got so far to go on this bike yet. Oh my god. I'll be happy when this bit's done though. So just had a couple of beautiful TT bikes come in from a customer. I've just put a post up thumbnail Again, it's probably months away before you see them, but they're in the pipeline. There's a lot of stuff I keep posting and saying I'm making, and trust me, I'll make them, don't worry. They'll all be there. It's just got a lot of bikes to film and not a lot of time. I'm not doing this full time, so you have to bear with me a little bit. Not full time yet, anyway. Watch this space. Right, so front one goes here. It's going to go through the bar, obviously, like so. And the hose can go through there, obviously the right side of the other hose. I've got these spaces we need to clip back in as well. And obviously the stem. I'm just going to roughly put this stem on for now. And we can get them spaces back in. Very lightly clamp this bottom bolt, very lightly. Just to hold everything together like that. Right, breathe. Drop these spaces on now. These are slotted, as I say, so it makes life a bit easier. Most of them are, apart from this, well, this top and bottom one. If they were slotted, it would be a lot easier, but obviously they can't do that. Like that, and then we can push the stem back in. Get this hose somewhere where it wants to be. Push the stem back down. Make sure you push your stem, don't twist it. They ask you not to twist it, specifically. Oh, so we've got a bit of a gap here, which will close that up, and that'll look pretty much as it should be. I think what I'm going to do next is just pull this hose through this lever. It's quite a short run again, so it should be easy. It's just a bit of a tight radius at the end to get it through. A very tight radius. There we go. Okay. Right. Getting somewhere. Now we've trimmed this fork. I think this expander's ever so slightly too long. It might need a trim on the bottom bit. So that needs to sit flush down the bottom there. I can't see because I put the stem on. So let me just take this stem on. Yeah, that needs to sit flush at the bottom, so that won't go down any further. So on a 52 centimetre frame, Specialized say that this may need trimming. So what you do is cut the 3mm off the bottom of this, so it will drop down and sit flush. So I'm just going to chop 3mm off the bottom of this first, then we'll continue. Right, this should now sit flush down the bottom, which it does. And this is 5 Newton-meters. There's a little arrow on here, show you a small arrow on here that aligns with your stem bolt, so it goes to the back of the bike basically. 6mm there. And that should be on there then. I'll talk this down in a minute, but I just want to make sure we're good. Perfect. So this just sits just below the top of the stem there, and we'll hold everything together. This is not the final install yet, just a dry run. So we should be able to hopefully take the slack out of the headset with this now. Okay, that feels good. So I'm just going to nip one of these up again, make sure we're looking good underneath the top cap. Yeah, I mean, this is not a final run yet. We'll take this back out and we should see a tiny bit of a gap between the top of the fork and the stem. Beautiful. Absolutely spot on. It's almost like I've done it before, isn't it? Right, I'm going for a cup of tea, be back. Alright, now I'm happy with all that. Just going to torque this centre bolt up. Right, I'll just slacken these back off, and now I'm going to tighten this back up to where it should be at 5 Newton-meters. Making sure that arrow stays towards the back. Done. Now we can refit this stem properly. Plenty of grease and whatnot in here from the original install by Specialized, so I'm not adding any additional. No carbon paste on this one. Specialized state they don't want you to put carbon paste on the steerer. Just checking for playing this headset now. A little bit of pressure. Oh, that feels good. We'll check it on the floor, and we've got a brake attached, but that feels really good. And we can just tighten these down again, 5 Newton-meters on these. I'll check alignment again. We might need to just tweak this when it's on the floor with a wheel in it, but let's just get it right for now. The customer can't find the aero cap that comes with it, so I've had to order a new one for him. So we are waiting for that still. Should be here hopefully tomorrow. And again, 5 Newton-meters on these. Done. So headset feels lovely now, and new bearing in the bottom. No play in there. Just waiting for that aero cover. So he did supply me with this one, but that's not going to achieve anything. It's got a hole in it. So now we need to put this clamp back on here, reconnect the hose to the lever itself, and then I'm going to show you what I'm going to do, my plan of action for these. Actually, I can get to these things now, so I'll do these bits first. So this is where these little plastic things sit in here. There's a little, basically a small riv nut in here that they thread into. So that's a metal face on there, and this is just a piece of plastic. So there's no carbon interface there. So what I'm planning on doing, I'm going to fit one of these very small star washers to it. Spring washers, star washers, what do you want to call it. Also going to add some more Loctite. I don't know why Specialized Loctite stopped halfway down there. The useful bit's not actually got any on it, so we'll put some there. Add this spring washer to bite against the metal riv nut and this piece of plastic, and then it should tighten itself on with less torque than what they're actually asked for. This could be a bit fiddly, to say the least. I can't see a thing now. Feels like it's threading in. Alright, so that's tightening up now. I've literally not even done finger tight yet and it's pretty good. Tiny bit more there and that's solid. Good. I think that'll sort it. That seems pretty solid to me. Not going to put this one on until I've clamped this to the bottom of the stem again with that other piece. And then get it threaded to the lever. About there on this bit, bleed the brake. So this bit here just clamps underneath the stem under here to hold these hoses together out of the way. Just flip the bike upside down in the stand now. And just clamp this down. Well, this just directs the hoses basically. Not doing a great deal. Don't need to be very tight again. It's fine. Good, so they're going down there. We know all that's right. There's one of the covers on. Pretty solid. I'll just chuck this other one on here now. They really don't make this easy. I'm normally a big fan of Specialized, but they do like to try and reinvent the wheel a bit too much. Them and Cannondale. Alright, I ain't going anywhere. You see how tight that isn't? That little spring washer is just going to help no end. So that is 1 Newton meter it's asking for. I'm literally pushing that with one finger to there. It's not even half a Newton meter. That's solid. Next job is this lever. This hose, like I say, it should be pretty much bang on to where it was, because I measured it exactly. Let's just check against the markings there. Like I say, if anything, that's a tiny bit long, so it's just going to push the excess in the bar. So I'm pretty happy with that, actually. That's where the lever's supposed to sit there, so that's good. So we'll just terminate this now. Do not forget your nut. I'm going to put my olive on. Sometimes, like I say, sometimes this expands ever so slightly, and it's very difficult to move that. So I always like to put it on first. Again, just get this started. You can just hit these in with a piece. There's a little clamp that Shimano sell there and you can just tap it in, but it's a bit sketchy. Again, there's better tools than this as well. Shimano do a sort of one press thing that does it all in one motion, but it's like £90 and still got to bleed this, but it's not too bad on the Shimano system. Still got to fit the pads, still got to fit the rotors. Waiting for this new top cap for this headset. So we've done the back end of the bike, the gears, etc. That's all done. Good. And again, can be tricky to get this started. Very tricky to get this started. A little bit of grease on this again, just to help spin it in. This is in Shimano's manual. I've done Shimano's tech course, 150 odd courses. Professor of Shimano, apparently. Right, this should just screw in here now. Be very, 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 very careful to get this straight. Like, super careful. Just strip the thread in this, new lever. See, it looked like that was going in and it's not, so that's why I'm saying you've got to be really, really careful on this. Just take this off and that gives me more flex to get that in straight again. I can't emphasise how important it is to get this thing started straight because it's going to cause you massive expenses if you get it wrong. That's biting now. There's no rush doing this. This lever is extremely expensive. It's asking for 5 to 6 Newton meters on here. I don't generally torque these because I'll show you why. I've got a tool to do it, but I hate it. Right, so that's started well. Now we can just get this clamp back into where it should be. It's easier said than done normally. So that puts it back exactly where it was basically. You're not going to see any of this underneath the tape obviously. Very often when you take tape off, these are all marked up from previous work. Carbon bar, let's not go crazy on this torque as well. So I'm going to set this to 4 Newton meters, which is pretty low. So you want this tight enough to not move in normal use obviously. If you have an accident, ideally you want to be able to spin this around the bar rather than snapping off your Di2 blade. So, right, we need to tighten this up, tighten one on the caliper, and we can bleed it and think about wrapping these bars. This is the part tool MWF3, which is designed for a torque wrench, designed for 3/8, but you can use an adapter to get it down to your torque wrench if you've got a 1/4 inch. I don't like this because you use it at 90 degrees like this, but it always feels like you're putting way too much torque on there before it goes. And I always bottle it before it gets to a click. That's pretty damn tight there. You can use a little crow's foot if you got one, same thing, but eventually gets there. But it's scary, honestly. It feels like you're putting so much torque on it. 6 Newton meters. We'll do the caliper as well with the same thing. That's pretty much as tight as I would normally do one of these, and it's never ever leaked in. As many years as I've been doing this. Hold the end of your torque wrench and pray. But there's no way that needs to be any tighter than that. I'm not doing that one. So now, gloves back on because now we're going to bleed this. Again, I'm just going to put the bleed cup in here. There's no oil in the hose anyway, so we're not going to over expand this one, but we need it anyway. Why my bike's 6 foot in the air, I don't know. 2.5 millimeters, and again, be very, very, very careful with this one. Keep the hood completely out of the way. Make sure your O-ring's there. Install your plastic cup. So I'd much rather break a plastic cup than a £300 or £400 lever. I've got shorts on if you might have noticed. It's still quite warm in the UK. When you're going to get this video, it'll probably be winter by then. Take this screw out. And my safety Crocs as well. They're not Crocs. AliExpress Crocs, brilliant. I'll clean them first. I have cleaned it while it was on the bench, but let's just get the rest of the rubbish out. These little bottle brushes are brilliant for this. Amazon, I think they were, I don't know. All different sizes. Right, it's clean. Push these pistons back in. Again, I'll just use this cush core lever for downhill tyres and whatnot. Brilliant lever. Shimano bleed block. This just fits like a glove, honestly. You don't need the pin or anything. It's going nowhere. It's fantastic. Right, so now I need to find a bleed port on this. I think there was a cover missing on one, wasn't there? With Shimano, I use their bleed kit because it fits so well with this little pin on the end. Just drops straight into the caliper really nicely. I do have Park and Jaguar and everything, but when Shimano, I just use their kit because it just works really well. It's almost like it's designed for it. Quite a bit of fluid in here because we are trying to clear out this empty line, and everything else would have leaked in the meantime as well. So just push that into the side there. Just undo this screw half a turn to open it. Like that. That's tight. And then we can just pump this through. I like to give it a bit of a vacuum sometimes just to suck it out, but because this is so empty, there's no point. We know there's going to be loads of air. And I'm just going to push all that through. There'll be a ton of air in this on there. There you go. Plenty more still coming. Just going to give this lever a couple of squeezes. That should be all it needs, just clear this out rather than a full bleed at angles and a gravity feed, I think. We'll see how this goes. If we need to revisit, then it's not a problem. Right, that's that full syringe gone through there now. I'm going to empty that into the syringe, flush it through again, then I'll put some fresh fluid through just for the final one, because there's still air coming out of this. So there you go. Well, that's that syringe again, and there's still air, so we're going to just keep recycling this for now. Like I say, we're going to flush through some new stuff at the end. Okay, hopefully this should about clear it now. Third lot. Yeah, that looks a lot better now. Right, final one with some clean fluid in the syringe. Looks pretty good. Let's see how that goes with the pads in. You fit your plug very gently. So if you're not even slightly sure that's cross-threaded, then stop, because it will be. That's in. So on the bleed block, this should feel super firm, and it does. That's good. So that's the bleed block still in there. Rock hard lever. Good. I'm going to just pull this hood back for now while we're not using it, because you don't want to leave them folded like that for too long because you end up with a big crease in it. So come out for now. They'll sort themselves out eventually, but try not to leave them folded back if you can help it. So surgery over. Patients pulled through, no complications. So all that work just to cut this off. For home mechanics, that's probably a bit beyond a lot of people. With a lot of tools and whatnot, but yeah, that's all we were doing all that for really, just to chop that piece off. Obviously we've done the headset bearing while we're in there, which is a bonus. And yeah, the bike's going to look a bit better. Just waiting for the aero cover, drop that on, that's 2 seconds, clips on. New pads in the front as well. I can't get over the weight of these things, they weigh nothing, honestly. And they're relatively cheap as well, they're no more expensive than normal pads. Screw in, and the clip. Just quickly swap this rotor over for a new one as well. Finally get this wheel back in. It's felt like an eternity since I took this out. Almost there. Good. Right, I do need to centre this caliper. Remember, I've already loosened that off once. So let's get that roughly centred and then see how the brakes sit. Plenty of room on this one. You can see daylight. So it's super difficult to film something like this, but I will do one day. Okay, that's pretty good. Just gonna squeeze this lever now. Beautiful. So now we've got a wheel and we can check this alignment. Oh, that's a good guess. It's absolutely perfect. And headset. A tiny bit of play in there still, so I'm just going to tweak that up. Just going to slacken these back off. And a little bit more on here. That's it. Beautiful. Alright, so we are aligned and the headset is set properly. Just nip these back up again to 5 Newton. There you go. Headset done, nice and aligned, and these bits are not wobbling around anymore. Do still need to wrap the bars, well, unwrap that and wrap it, and wrap this one, but we'll do that later. Next we are going to move on to the Di2, or firmware updates. Oh, just before we move on to that, I'm just going to put a new screw in here. I don't know if this is a problem, but that's as far as I'm going to go involved on power meters, sorry. It's the wrong colour, but it's the right size. So that's it. Potentially the battery's just flexing away, not making a contact with this missing, so it might be all it needs, but that's, like I say, that's as far as I'm going with that. $750 fitted to the crank, so I'm not getting involved in that, sorry. Either works or we go back to the manufacturer for that. Right, let's get the Di2 done. So with the Di2 I use the PCE02, which is for the laptop interface to connect to the bike. You can do it with Bluetooth on your phone, but there are some limitations doing that. With this, you can do pretty much everything. So it's slightly more complicated to connect it to a 12-speed wireless bike. You need a little junction box on here, intercept the signal basically, and then we can talk to the rear derailleur, the front derailleur and the battery, and then we need to talk to the levers separately. So let's get going. All right, so to connect this PC02 to the derailleur, we need to unplug the original cable, which is down here. It's got a rubber cover on it, slides out the way, like that. And we can unplug the cable. This is a Di2 tool that basically clips onto the cables and allows you to unplug them like that. It just hooks into the plastic body. And we need a little junction box here to intercept this signal. So you plug that cable into the junction box, like that. Then we have a spare cable here, so one end goes to the other half of the junction box, like that. On the other end, just a spare cable. You need plenty of spares for this. Clips back into the derailleur, so we've basically intercepted that signal there. So that's that connected up junction box there. Cable going to the junction box, back into the bike to the battery, then one cable coming out to the PCE02. That then connects to the laptop via USB. So then we can connect via E2 project on your laptop. So you can do this on your phone. You are a bit limited. This should now talk to the rear derailleur, front derailleur and the battery. I'll tell you if there's any firmware updates that need doing. Then we have to do the levers individually. There's ports in the back of those that you just plug into. Okay, so there's showing the rear derailleur with an update. It can't connect to the levers obviously because we need to do them independently. So the battery and both derailleurs are due an update. So select all. Make sure your laptop battery is charged or you're plugged in. Before you do this, update these. Takes a little bit of time, but not too bad. Okay, so all up to date. Okay, firmware update done. Now we need to disconnect the system on this disconnect button here, and then we can go to the shifters. So basically all we need to do, there's an empty port here potentially, but we know this one is blocked. We just pull that out with this special tool. Just push the USB cable in there. That's in. Okay, so try connect now and it should find the right hand shifter. So I spoke to Shimano UK yesterday if this was the best way of doing it, and they said yes. So if anybody's aware of a way to talk to both the shifters at the same time on a wireless system, drop a comment. Seems like a bit of a faff to me. I've got to connect to 3 things, but hey. Alright, so that's found that shifter. Again, an update available, so we'll update that one. Additional software license. I think that was from the news article you might have seen where people are allegedly hacking into shifters so they can change people's gears halfway through a race. So I think that's what we're telling me to agree to there. We don't do that. Right, that's done. Disconnect this, connect to the left-hand shifter, and then make sure everything still works. So in a wired system, it's easy. You just basically find an empty port and it talks to the whole system, but not that this is difficult. You just got to connect to 3 different things. You can also do full diagnostics and stuff with a PCE02 if you've got any battery drain issues or anything. I'm just doing firmware updates on this one. And connect to left-hand shifter. And the final update. So this system was out of date. Agree to that, and away we go. Imagine doing this 20 years ago, updating your firmware on your bike kind of service. Mad. I like Di2 though, don't get me wrong, I do like it. Done. Disconnect that last one and make sure everything still works. Okay, disconnected. Right. Beautiful gears, oh my god. I don't get much better than, well, I don't get any better than that. Beautiful. And brakes. Right, so what we're going to do now is going to bed these brakes in on the Sinter brake bedding in machine. So we need to select the right product here. So we've got a 160mm 2-piston Ice Tech. So we want program B on this one. We're on the back wheel first of all. So I'll put it on here. It's quite noisy. You've probably seen a video of this before. I'll try and film this on the GoPro so you can see what it's actually telling you to do. And we'll get these bedded in. Okay, let's go. Takes a while. You can see that that's going to be red hot now and perfectly bedded in. So yes, there's many arguments. Why don't you just go for a ride? Yeah, I get it. What if it's pissing it down rain? I can't do that. What if I can't fit the bike? I can't do that. You know, it's a £13,000 bike at the end of the day. If I fall off and damage it, I've got a massive problem. And even then, the brakes are not going to be anywhere near bedded in as well as this machine does it. Took me 2-3 minutes, and these are absolutely awesome now, guaranteed. It's a lot of money, but it does an awesome job, believe me. Let's do the front brake. Done. Beautiful. You ain't getting no better than that, believe you me. Right, so we are just wrapping the bars now. So the owner's asked me specifically to make sure we don't go over the edge of the aero section here, so I'm just going to send him a picture in a minute, just to wind him up. Alright, just send him a picture, just to wind him up, and then we'll do it properly. I'll send that over to the customer, he's going to love it. Alright, let's do it properly then. Sorry, can't resist it. There's some Marco tape, it's got a very nice stretch on it. So we're going top to bottom on this to match what was on there before. Like that. Get it tightened down. No tape then if you do it top to bottom. A lot of people say this is the only way, but I've still got a video in the pipeline to filming how to wrap handlebars. I want to do it sort of 8 or 9 different ways, top to bottom, left to right, with a figure of 8, etc, etc. Just show you basically every single combination. And then I'm just going to let everybody fight it out in the comments as to which is best, because no matter how you wrap a handlebar in any video on the internet, always somebody's going to come on and tell you you're doing it wrong. I'm not saying I'm the guru of wrapping bars by any stretch of the imagination. I do come from a mountain biking background where we don't do this, but I'm getting there. Keep a lot of tension on this, like this, and try and keep the pattern relatively even. So this is the way that Specialized wrapped it. The direction on the top and the drop. So if it's wrong, blame Specialized. I think its tape is much nicer than the stuff that was on there actually. The problem with doing it top to bottom is it's a bit more difficult for me. I don't know why, I can't get my head around how you're supposed to finish it. They seem to want to cut off sort of 3 inches and, oh sorry, my thumb hurts. And then wrap it in the bottom. Well, that sounded a bit wrong, didn't it? Sorry. Alright, just use this to hold it in place. Sorry, arthritis in this thumb, stuff like this is really difficult now. Alright, just put this hood back where we're done. Not too shoddy at all, that. Got a few inches here, wrap it around, shove it in the bottom. Yeah, beautiful. Alright, we're done. Okay, so I'll just wrap up the other side off camera, and then we'll wait for this cap to arrive and wrap up the video. Beautiful. Alright, final piece of the jigsaw finally arrived from Specialized. Makes it all worthwhile. Look at that, beautiful. It is a lot of work, but it's made a big difference to the appearance rather than the old tower of indecision that we had sticking up here now. So that's gone. Super flush now. That looks really, really nice. So final wipe down, and this beauty is done, ready to roll. So that's it done now. I hope you enjoyed that. It's a stunning bike, really is. Everything's working perfectly now. Obviously, Di2, absolutely beautiful firmware update. I hope you enjoyed that. Something different. The fork chopping down. Big job for not much, but it's made a big difference to the appearance of the bike. Obviously, that's definitely well worth doing. New bar tape, new brakes that don't actually go all the way to the lever, so that's always a bonus. And yeah, apart from that, she is mint. So I'm going to call the customer now, let him know it's ready for collection, and then attempt to chop 4 hours footage down into something a bit shorter than that for you guys. So thanks for watching. If you've not already hit that subscribe button, please do so. It really does help the channel. I also have super thanks enabled, so if you do want to contribute a couple of pounds towards the building of the channel, massively appreciated as well. So thank you very much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.